Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Medicine of 101. Today we'll talk about regulations of breathing part 2. Okay, so in the first video I have already talked under normal circumstances, under normal physiological circumstances, what type of the regulations you can get. Let's talk about that thing very quickly. Okay, so I said you that basically we'll have what the main inspiratory centers that is present in the dorsal side, or you can say the posterior of the medulla oblongata. So there is a center, okay, inspiratory center. Now try to understand from here. I said you these things that can go, okay, spontaneous, that can produce the spontaneous action potential, that can produce the spontaneous action potential, and whenever it will produce the action potentials, that will come through the motor nerves downward. After that, from here, try to remember I said you that will give signals to the what, C3, C4 and C5, and the ultimate response that will come. These three things, they will be what, combined together, they will form the phrenic nerves. After that they will go where, within the diaphragm, and that will help to contract of the diaphragm. In the contractions of the diaphragm, as a result, we will get what, there will be the increase in the diameter of the lungs. That means, what we can say, the volume of the lungs, that will be increased over here. In the same way, we also said there are some additional neural signals that will go from here to the external intercostal muscles during inspiration. So that will also what, help in increasing the volume of the lungs. By how it will help, try to understand from here. I said you that whenever the external intercostal muscles, they will just do the contractions, they will take the ribs upward, so they will lift the ribs upward. As a result, we will also see there will be also increase the diameter of the lungs. So we can say the volume of the lungs, that will be increased. Now basically today I'll talk about the chemoreceptors. So what type of the chemoreceptors are present over here, and how they just do the regulations of the breathing. Okay, so it's normally what, the inspiratory center over here. Okay, let's erase this part. Okay, now basically if we knew if we see that within the blood compositions, what are the things are the major factors over here. Chemoreceptors means the receptors that can sense the different kinds of the chemical compositions of the blood. That means the chemoreceptors, when they will be excited, whenever they will see, whenever they can sense, there is the alterations or the changes within the blood compositions. Okay, in terms of these respiratory systems, we have to know in terms of what, partial pressure of oxygen, partial pressure of carbon dioxide, and pH. Okay, when you are talking in terms of the inspiratory center, these are the central regulations. As well as the chemoreceptor is concerned, you have to know where the chemoreceptors are present, So we will see the chemoreceptors where in anterolateral side, for example, we will get some group of neurons. These are known as the chemoreceptors. So these chemoreceptors, they are present just 1 to 2 millimeter away from the dorsal part of, from the ventral part of the what, medulla. So 1 to 2 millimeter away from the ventral part of the medulla, these chemoreceptors are present where, within the medulla oblongata. If I show you more clearly the diagram, let's draw the medulla part over here. So if you draw, okay, so what can you get? Try to understand from this figure that within the medulla, basically this will be the pyramid, this will be pyramid, this will be the olive, this will be the olive. Okay, now try to understand from the figure. What do you know from here? Okay, from here there will be the originations of, from here we will get the origination of 12th cranial nerve, right? That means hypoglossal nerve from here. And what about this part? Let's show in the different one over here. Okay, let's use this one. And this is the what, in between the olive, and we will get what, inferior what, cerebellar peduncle. We will get, or in between the olive and inferior cerebellar peduncle, we will get the origination of what, we will get the originations of 10th cranial nerve. Okay, we will get origination of the 10th cranial nerve. Now it will be 9, and below it will get 10. So first we'll get from here the origination of what? In between the olive. Okay, let me repeat it once again. In between the olive and inferior cerebellar peduncle. In between the olive and inferior cerebellar peduncle, we will get the origination of ninth cranial nerve or the glossopharyngeal nerve. And under it, we will get the origination of what? Under it, we will get the origination of 10th cranial nerve. 10th cranial nerve. The same way, we will also get the origination of 10th cranial nerve. Now see, near the glossopharyngeal and the vagus nerves, we'll see the chemoreceptors. Where they will be exactly, we'll see them. We'll see the chemoreceptors exactly they are present, the olive, in these regions. So we can say the anterolateral sides of the medulla, or we can say near its, we can say from 1 to 2 millimeter away from the ventral side of the medulla, we can get the what? Chemoreceptors over here. Now these groups of the neurons, we are getting over here, they are known as what? Central chemoreceptors, because when we are talking in terms of the regulations of the breathing, we will get two types of the chemoreceptors. One will get the central chemoreceptors, and then we will get the peripheral chemoreceptors. So these are the what? Central chemoreceptors. Central chemoreceptor. From here, I hope it's clear for you. Now, how they will be activated? Okay, what's their function? We'll talk about that thing. Now, what do you know basically that, for example, during normal conditions, or you can say if any individual who is doing the exercise at the time, the metabolic activity is getting increased. So, whenever the metabolic activity that will be increased, definitely there will be more productions of the carbon dioxide. So, we'll get here more productions of the carbon dioxide, or we can say, for example, during exercise, the partial pressures for the carbon dioxide that will be elevated. And whenever we'll see that, whenever the partial pressure of the carbon dioxide that will be elevated over here, so there is the presence of water molecule over here, and that will react with this carbon dioxide, and it will form what? It will form the carbonic acid. So whenever it is forming the carbonic acid, after that we know it will be dissociated into what? Proton plus bicarbonate. Proton plus bicarbonate. Now, actually, if we just say the central chemoreceptors, the most powerful, they can sense most carbon dioxide first, then they can sense the oxygen, then they can sense the pH, we can say. So basically from here we can say, we can remove these two. So they are the main sensor for the carbon dioxide. They are the main sensor for the carbon dioxide, not for that much for the oxygen and pH. So we can remove from it. So, okay. Another thing we can see from here that they are also sensitive for proton. This is the proton H plus. Okay. Now we'll talk about this thing, how they are getting activated and what type of functions we'll get over here. Now see, whenever this proton we are getting over here, along with we are getting also the bicarbonate. As we know that the proton, they cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. Hope you know what is blood-brain barrier. Here, let's remind you once again. So let's do it over here. So we are getting the productions of the proton over here. Okay. Now, for example, is the tissue, nerve tissue, piece of the nerve tissue. Okay. And we know through these portions the blood that will go. Okay, let's make it. Okay. Now, okay, see. Now the blood is going, is the arterial blood. So, arterial blood that is going. Okay. And whenever it will go over here, in these cases we will see, in terms of the brain we will get the endothelial cells, they will be tightly held with each other. That means we will get a tight junctions over here. So they will not allow any kind of the molecules except the what? The lipid soluble molecules. So in these cases, try to understand from here, and along with that we will see these things will be supported by the food processes of astrocytes. Food process of astrocytes. Okay. So food process of astrocytes, that will help also to make it more tight. Okay. So in these cases we will get the blood-brain barrier. Now this blood-brain barrier, okay, inside the blood-brain barrier zone, this is the very private zones where we will get the neurons are present actually. Here we will get the neurons, here we will get the neuronal cells. Okay. Now what do we know when you are talking in terms of the proton? When you are talking in terms of the proton, whenever the protons are coming over here, definitely the protons, as they are charged molecules, they are not able to cross the membrane, or you can say they are not cross the blood-brain barrier. So for the proton, it's not possible to cross the blood-brain barrier. But what about carbon dioxide? What about carbon dioxide? As we know, the carbon dioxide, it's a lipid-soluble molecule. It's a gas, so they can cross the blood-brain barrier easily. Okay, so let's show these things over here. Okay, let's show these things over here. For example, I'm just taking this the blood-brain barrier over here. Okay, let's see over here. So I'm just taking this is the blood-brain barrier. Okay, this is the general circulations. Okay, it's the general circulations, and within the general circulations we got for doing exercise, you got the productions of the carbon dioxide and water molecules is present already over here, and that will produce the carbonic acid. And whenever I already said it over here, let's repeat once again. After that we'll get it will break down into proton plus bicarbonate. See the thing, this proton, neither this proton nor this bicarbonate, they are able to cross the blood-brain barrier. They will just repel, for example, over here. They cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. So what type of thing we'll see over here? As we know that whenever the carbon dioxide, the concentrations of the carbon dioxide, that will be more, or you can say that will be elevated for increasing the metabolic activity. So the carbon dioxide, let's show this color. This carbon dioxide, they will be able to cross the blood-brain barrier. So whenever they will come after crossing the blood-brain barrier within the interstitial space, they will react with the water molecules. So after that they will produce again what? Carbonic acid. Okay, then again they will produce what? The proton and bicarbonate. Now see, whenever we are getting the proton, try to understand, don't get confused this proton with this proton. We are getting this proton whenever the carbon dioxide is crossing the blood-brain barrier, and after coming within the brain tissue, they are reacting with the water molecules and they are producing the proton. And these protons, okay, try to understand from it. These protons, they can stimulate the what? Respiratory centers. So we can say from it, okay, let's do this part over here. Yes. Now these protons, they can stimulate the what? These neurons, and whenever these neurons will be stimulated, try to understand, they will send the signals within the inspiratory centers. Because we can say the pacemaker of the inspiratory centers, we can say inspiratory center. I've already said. Okay, try to understand. These protons, they will what? They will stimulate what? The neuronal cells over here, or you can say the central chemoreceptors. These protons, they will stimulate the central chemoreceptors, and these central chemoreceptors, they are very too much sensitive for the carbon dioxide. If you just take the piece of the carbon dioxide paper and touch this portion, this will be activated, and this will send the signals to what? Inspiratory center. And whenever send signals, that will be sent to the inspiratory center, that will be activated, and that will produce the exhalation potentials that will go to where? Within the diaphragm, within the external intercostal muscle. As a result, we will see there will be what? Hyperventilations. Okay. Now we got the bicarbonate over here and proton over here, and this proton that will activate the central chemoreceptors over here. So just like this, we will see whenever the concentration of the carbon dioxide, that will be more. The same way we will get the productions of the proton over here, and it will also be what? It will stimulate the central chemoreceptors over here. Now we have to know in terms of the different kinds of the partial pressure of the carbon dioxide. So normally, if we see normally under normal circumstances, under normal physiological, for example, the resting conditions. In resting conditions, the partial pressures. Okay, try to understand from here. The partial pressure for the carbon dioxide, that is around 40 mm of Hg in arterial blood. Okay. In the same way, if we just talk about the partial pressures within the blood brain, that means in the nerve regions over here, in these regions, so it will be also around 40 mm of Hg. Central chemoreceptors, in central chemoreceptors, and the partial pressures of the carbon dioxide, that is also 40 mm of Hg in the CSF, because this carbon dioxide that can cross the CSF membrane also. They can cross the cerebrospinal fluid membrane as well. So as a result, the main thing for this, the main purpose of what? The main purpose of the central chemoreceptors to maintain the normal oxygen level, to maintain the normal carbon dioxide level, to maintain the normal pH. Basically here we will focus over here especially for carbon dioxide. So it will try to maintain the normal carbon dioxide level within the peripheral circulations, or you can see in the normal systemic circulations over here. Okay. Now we will talk about the peripheral. We can say in terms of peripheral chemoreceptors. So this was all about what? The central chemoreceptors. So this is the central chemoreceptors. Okay, and it will send the signals within the, whenever it will be activated, it will send the signals to the C3, C4 and C5 root, and it will give the signals by forming the phrenic nerve within the it will go within the what? Diaphragm. It will send the signals to the diaphragm over here. Okay. Now let's talk about the peripheral chemoreceptors. Okay. For that thing, this was all about the central chemoreceptors. Central chemo or receptor. Now I'll talk about the peripheral chemoreceptors. Peripheral chemoreceptors. Now from here try to understand that. Okay, let's draw the once again the central nervous system, central nervous systems, these regions from the side view. So let's draw from the side view once again. Okay. What type of the peripheral chemoreceptors we will get? Okay, for that thing I have to draw the heart over here. Okay, and we got already what? We got the central chemoreceptors, they are present over here, and this is the what? Inspiratory centers, centrally presented over here. Okay. Okay, let's draw the heart. I'm just drawing the left atrium, left ventricle. Try to understand from here. Okay. Well, okay, let's draw it a little bit downward. Let's draw a little bit downward. See, if we just do further the divisions of the branches, whatever the branches we will get, we know from here we will get the brachiocephalic trunk. After that, what you are supposed to get? From here we again will get, there will be the divisions. We will get this on the right subclavian artery. Okay. And again we will get this thing will be divided into the common carotid artery, and the common carotid artery, that again it will be divided into what? What is the internal carotid artery? And within the internal carotid artery, we will get what? Aortic. You will get what? The carotid sinus. Internal carotid artery. This is the external carotid artery. We will get the carotid sinus over here. In these directions. In the same way, try to understand from here also. Okay, let's draw in this way. There you go. I am drawing it. What? Okay, let's draw with the red color only. This is the right common carotid artery. We will get the left right now. So again, we will see the divisions further. Okay. And again, we will get the carotid sinus. Okay, let's draw it more clearly for you. Okay. Now try to understand from here. Whatever the chemoreceptors we'll get the two types of the chemoreceptors over here. Peripheral chemoreceptors. One will get over here. In between the in between will external carotid artery, internal carotid artery. Will get a piece of organ over here. That is known as what? That is known as carotid body. Carotid body. And again another in the same will get also over here the carotid body. And we will get also an aortic body. Here we will get aortic body. In the same way we will get also over here the aortic body. Okay. Now try to understand from here that these things are innervated. Okay. We'll get over here. These things are connected with the ninth cranial nerve. So this thing is also connected with the ninth cranial nerve. So it will be sent to the signals over here. Whatever the changes we'll get, I'll talk about that thing, but let's show this thing first. So it will be the 10th cranial nerve from the aortic body. From the aortic body we'll get the 10th what? From the aortic body we'll get 10th cranial nerve, and from the carotid body will get the ninth cranial nerve. There will be there is the signals, that's the signal. Whatever the changes will get over here, that the same thing, or the signals for the chemical changes within the blood, that will be sent over here. Now try to understand whatever the changes will get. Basically, if we just talk about over here in terms of the carotid body, basically they are sensitive to partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, and they are also less sensitive to carbon dioxide and partial pressure of carbon dioxide and pH. But they are most importantly they are sensitive to the partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, so normally what do we know? The partial pressure of oxygen within the alveoli over here, within the alveoli, for example, over here the partial pressure of the oxygen is around 100 mm of Hg. In the same way we will get the partial pressure of oxygen in the arterial blood also 100 mm of Hg. So if we get any kind of the changes, or there is decrease in the partial pressures, at the time what? The carotid body that will fire. Okay, that will send the signals to the what? Central chemoreceptors over here. So if we see the partial pressures of the oxygens, whenever we see less than 60 mm of Hg, whenever we will get the partial pressure of oxygen less than 60 mm of Hg, at that time what we will see over here, that the carotid body that will start sending signaling where? That will start sending signal to the central chemoreceptors. Why I am saying so? Try to understand from here. If I just say you from here the graph, can you remember that word? Oxygen associative curves. Okay, so for that thing let's draw over here. Is the partial pressure of oxygen, is the oxygen saturation with hemoglobin. Okay, now try to understand from here. For example, is the 100% saturation, is the 85% saturation, it's for example 50% saturation, it's for example 40, whatever. Okay, And in these cases, for example, I am taking the partial pressure of oxygen here is 100 mm of Hg. Okay. Now, what do we know that whenever the partial pressure of oxygen is 100, definitely the maximum saturation, that will be what oxygen, the saturations of oxygen with the hemoglobin, that will be maximum in terms of 100 only. Okay. But try to understand whatever the graph we will get in these cases. Okay, let's draw it over here for you once. We will get the graph over here. Okay, in this way. So we'll get, okay, let's draw it more clearly. Okay. Now see, whenever the partial pressure of the oxygen is 100, at the time we will get the maximum saturation. That means we will get 100 saturations. But whenever we will get, for example, is the partial pressure of oxygen at 60 in these positions? Is the 60 mm of Hg. So whenever the partial pressure of the oxygen is 60 mm of Hg, at that time we will also get the saturations at least around 85. For example, it is the 85 taken. We will get around 85% saturations of oxygen. Okay, we will get the hemoglobin, the saturations of the hemoglobin with the oxygen 85%. But if we get less than 60 at the time, see the graph that will fall dramatically. Try to understand from here the slope. It's a slope. Okay. After that, if we get less than 60 mm of Hg, if we get less than 60 mm of Hg, at that time the saturations of the oxygen that will be dramatically fall. It may come over here 40, 50, whatever it is. So whenever the partial pressure of the oxygen that will be less than 60 mm of Hg at the time, the carotid body they will start firing. They will start send signal where within the central chemoreceptors. Now whatever the cells are present over here, that will help to send the signals that I will talk about right now. Okay. Now for that thing, I have to draw a little bit part here. Okay, let's draw over here. What can you draw? Okay. I can draw over here. Now see, if I just say the two cells from the carotid, from the carotid bodies, I am taking the two cells. Okay, from the carotid bodies. So okay, so let's continue. For example, from the carotid bodies, I am taking the two cells. Okay, two types of the cells basically will get where from here. Okay, from the sources, I am just taking the two cells. From this person, I am taking two cells. So basically, we know within these regions, the blood flow is what higher blood flow. We will get the highest blood flow where within this carotid regions. Within the carotid regions, we will get the highest blood flow. So for example, I am just taking the two types of the cells, type 1 and type 2. We will get the two types of the cells. Okay, through which the blood flow that will be the highest. We will get the maximum or the highest blood flow these regions. Now, how they can sense the oxygens over here? That's the main thing to know. Okay, I'm just taking the two cells. Okay. I give the two cells. Now, try to understand from here. Whenever the blood flow is maximum, at the time the oxygen is going. So whenever the oxygen will go, the oxygen will be taken by the cells also. Okay, and within these cells, we know whatever the thing is present over here, there is the presence of oxygen sensitive potassium channel. There is the presence of oxygen sensitive potassium channel. So it is the oxygen sensitive potassium channel. So oxygen sensitive potassium channel, that is presence. So whenever the oxygen is available, at that time the potassium that will leak out, potassium that will come outside of the cell. This type of the cell known as glomus cell. So this type of the cell is known as glomus cell. So whenever the oxygen is good enough in amount, at the time try to understand the potassium that will come out. But try to understand whenever the partial pressure of the oxygen that will fall down, as a result there will be not good enough amount of the oxygen, because whenever the oxygen is less, definitely at the time within the lungs less amount of the oxygen is coming, As a result, we will see whenever from the lungs it will go through the systemic circulations. At that time, there will be also oxygen that will be also less. So whenever the oxygen will be less, definitely the less amount of the oxygen will go over here. So whenever the oxygen will be less, try to understand. So oxygen dependent, this potassium channel, that will be blocked. So whenever it will be blocked, there will be no chance for the potassium to go outside. So the potassium that will keep on accumulating, within the cell. So whenever the potassium that will start accumulating within the cells, whatever the changes we will see. Normally, what do we know? The resting membrane potential of the cell is around how much? Around, if I say the resting membrane potential, around 90 minus 90 millivolt. Okay, minus 90 millivolts. So it is the resting membrane potential. Let's do it clearly. So is the resting membrane potential around minus 90 millivolt. So whenever the potassium is not able to go out because of the lack of oxygen, so the decrease in the partial pressure of the oxygen, at that time we'll see, for example, the threshold potential. Okay, whenever the potassium is keep on accumulating within the cells, it will neutralize the what? It will neutralize the minus 90 millivolt. Maybe it may be like minus 70, minus 60 millivolt. At a time it will come, it can touch the threshold potential. So when it will be able to touch the threshold potential, at that time we will see the phenomenon of depolarization that will be started. We will get the depolarizations. So whenever the depolarization that will be started, why? Whenever it will just touch the threshold potential, at that time we will see the voltage sensitive calcium channel that will be opened. As a result, we will see there will be influx of the calcium. So whenever the calcium that will be taken within the cell, we will see the depolarizations. Then we will see the depolarization. It will come to the depolarization again. Okay. Now whatever thing we will see over here, that for example, okay, let's draw the part over here. Try to understand from it. So is the type 1, okay, is the type 1, for example, aortic cells over here. Okay, so you can say the glomus cells, another name. So we can say glomus cell. So try to understand, whenever the potassium channel is blocked, whenever the oxygen sensitive potassium channel is blocked, so the concentration of the potassium that will be increased. As a result, it will reach from the resting membrane potentials to the threshold potential very soon whenever it will be blocked. So whenever it will touch, it will just do the depolarizations. As a result, we will see why the depolarizations will be done over here, because of the presence of the voltage sensitive calcium channel. So it will be opened, the calcium that will be taken within the cells. Whenever the calcium will come within the cells we will get that dopamine containing vesicles. We will get the dopamine containing vesicles. The dopamine, here the dopamine is stored. So dopamine. Now the dopamine is stored over here. Now the calcium, they will do what? They will just take the vesicles from here to the membrane. So whenever it will take up to the membrane, these vesicles, the dopamine that will be secreted. Whenever the dopamine that will be secreted, that will help to send the signals. That means whenever it will be secreted, for example, is the dopamine over here. Is the dopamine. Now dopamine will be secreted. Now dopamine is having the receptors where within the glossopharyngeal nerve. So dopamine that is having the receptors for the glossopharyngeal nerve. From here it will be sent to where within the central chemoreceptors. Now let me tell one small thing over here, that if we just talk in terms of the carotid sinus, see, is the carotid sinus. So carotid sinus, that is totally different thing, and carotid body is totally different thing. Carotid body is the peripheral chemoreceptors in terms of the respiratory systems, and carotid sinus, they can sense the, if we see the fluctuation in the BP, if we get up and down in the BP, basically these are the baroreceptors. They are having the baroreceptors, so they can sense the fluctuations in the BP. If it is go up, it will go down, and it will try to regulate it. Okay, so this is all about in terms of the regulations of the breathing, in terms of different kinds of aspects. For example, we got over here the central chemoreceptors and the peripheral chemoreceptors. In the central chemoreceptor, whatever thing we got over here, basically it is involved to the partial pressure of the carbon dioxide, and also sensitive to the proton, because in terms of the pH. And in terms of the peripheral chemoreceptor, whatever thing we got over here, I hope it's clear for you guys. Okay, so if you don't get any point, please let me know in the comment sections, and be there to help you guys. Okay, don't try.